What's up, everybody? It's Chad. I'm back again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. We're here on the second season. I'm here with my buddy Adrian, aka Hash of the Holy. Thank you for joining me today, buddy.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Of course, man. And you drove up from El Paso too, so I appreciate that.
No worries, no worries. Happy to be here for sure.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. So, if you guys know who he is, if you don't, you're going to learn a lot more today. So, as I said, thank you for joining me. Today we don't have a sponsor or anything. So we're just going to get on into the episode. So today we're going to be talking about my buddy here. So tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Well, I'm from El Paso, West Texas. As you said, I came from there. I mean, I was born and raised there. I'm a content creator, short form, Instagram mostly. Where I find myself in the cannabis industry is, I think, how kind of everyone else does. Just a teenager getting into adventures and stuff like that. But through like what I do, content creation, videography, photography and stuff, as a user and stuff, and seeing the medical benefits of cannabis is where I kind of find myself here today, as far as just my creativity, glass collecting, advocacy, especially legally, and getting the states, hopefully more legalized as we go, and just seeing how much I can help doing that for sure.
Nice. So, what got you into the cannabis industry?
I would say it would definitely be like more of like the creative content creation stuff. A lot of my background, I guess you can say, with content creation was, it started in 2020 during COVID and stuff like that. Not a lot of people know this, but I am big into fashion as well. During that time, I was really into more of like the vintage fashion, cottagecore kind of stuff. And so I was doing TikTok stuff, but mostly for men's fashion, like suit fashion, all that. And it kind of fizzled out over time. Didn't think I would ever do it again, but through like my girlfriend, some friends and stuff, seeing what I do and what I can do, content creation, kind of came back. But for the cannabis industry, mostly kind of like the glass collecting and seeing what I can do as far as my stuff. And then once I really started to meet, more of the community, especially like you, more like kind of like the West Texas advocates and stuff, more of New Mexico advocates, especially with the town hall sesh meetings that you run. I really found a niche of wanting to be more of like an advocate for the cannabis industry, and seeing where I can help and where my creativity can also benefit from that too. Yeah. And see how much I can, help. Essentially.
No, that's great, because there's a lot of people who ask, how do I get started? How do I get involved? Advocacy and stuff like that. And a lot of people have the capabilities now. They just need to know how. And the easiest way how is just showing up, following people like myself and yourself, who are just doing advocacy, in you and your journey, starting and everything. They can maybe get a lot of good tips, because my journey started, over a decade ago, so I don't have all that recorded for everybody, but I can just give you the tips and information that I know from experience. But yeah, that's something great, because, that's something people need to hear and say, because, it is a little daunting to get into the advocacy world. There's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of personal time and funds that go into it as well.
Most definitely. I mean, you hit it right on the head, but getting into it, it is a lot of it's a lot of time consumption. It's a lot of dedication and stuff. But just like you said, first off is, I would say like 80% of it is just showing up. Yeah, it's just showing up, and that's the start of it. And once you start it, it just opens up everything for sure. Because
I try to tell people, it's like about 98% showing up, because you're only speaking for like maybe 2 minutes. Sure. And so you're like, literally, even if you want to speak, so like, the 98%, just show up, exactly. As long as you're there. And then, like, I keep telling people too, the legislators were thanking us for showing up to the legislature in Santa Fe. Like, thank you, the cannabis industry people that were there. Thank you guys for showing up. Please, have more of you guys show up to these. Please, please. We're thankful you guys are here. They work for us. So, that's something that you guys, we need to remember. And don't get me wrong, there's some legislators that need to be reminded that too. But, there's a lot who understand that and understand that they're doing the job for us and they do work for the people. And they want us there to hear our input because they did take it and use it. They took what we told them and they said, you know what, that's true, and so they went from there. Definitely. But that's cool that you're getting started on that. And we'll talk more about advocacy actually here in a second.
For sure.
So boots, I wanted to talk about that for a second. Yeah, and I'm not calling you boots. Used to work, with a lot of leather and boots in the industry. Yes. So do you care to touch on that? I know this is a cannabis show and everything. Yeah. But you actually did a lot of really cool shit in your time in doing that.
I did.
Yeah. So you care to share a little bit?
Sure. So yeah, like my name's Adrian, but everyone does call me Cowboy. The reason why everyone calls me Cowboy is before I was in the cannabis industry, I was in the boot industry. My family does come from the boot industry. On my sister's side, they worked for some makers over there, and I just kind of followed suit in my way. But I worked everything from the background of things to upfront, slinging boots, to doing VIP clientele liaison and stuff, making sure that the communication between customer to factory is there's no pulling out all the stops, making sure there's no miscommunication, anything like that. And I've gotten to experience a lot of cool things. I've gotten to see a lot of cool designs. I've gotten to be a part of a lot of those projects. I've sold boots at $100 and I've sold $45,000 boots. Like it is nuts. It's cool. And I've met celebrities. I've done all that. And it's pretty dope. It's awesome.
Because in El Paso, one of the, or if not the, one of renowned boot makers is in El Paso.
Correct. And that's exactly who I worked for. A lot of people don't know this, but El Paso is the boot capital of the world. I can't really put a number, of how many are made, out of the city, because, everyone's, a little bit different, but, there's a rich culture in just boot making in El Paso, and that comes from especially Mexico. Mexico is one of the hearts of cobbling in the world, compared to, well, also with, Italy and other places, but, because of that culture here, boots are everywhere.
And that company actually will make New Mexico governor's boots sometimes. Governor King, I think, who I think was governor 3 times in the state, if not, a couple more, because at one point we didn't have a limit of how many times you could be governor. He actually has a pair of Lucchese's, or had, that were yellow, New Mexico. And they're New Mexico theme. I think even had the Z and the 505 or something like that on it, and they're pretty cool.
It's actually funny that you do mention that, because the person that I know who actually designed those, who's been with that company for over 40 years, I know exactly which one that you're talking about, and I've seen that design. Yeah. And now I know who that's for, and that's nuts. Like, I'm like, wow, small world. That's pretty dope. Hell yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. It was one of our old governors, who had that. Yeah. So and a lot of governors and stuff like that, they'll get boots, especially here in New Mexico. Oh yeah. And they trek down to El Paso or other places like that. So yeah, it's pretty cool to talk about that. And who knows, there might be people in the cannabis industry you might be seeing wearing Lucchese's around too. So I just thought that was something cool we could touch on. You got to meet a lot of cool people, and it was a pretty cool thing. So the boots thing, but you felt more of a draw towards cannabis, huh? You started to kind of feel like a pull away from it, or like what kind of happened?
I mean, I would like my kind of, I guess, work ethic, or my kind of what I want to get out of life is, it's just not, if I want to get myself involved into something, it's because I have a passion for it. I think that's how we should all do something. Like, I think if you're doing something that is not beneficial for your life, why are you doing it? Yeah. So like for me, I love Western fashion. I love boots. Like I said, I love just fashion culture. But things happen. Life happens. Chapters close and stuff. And my passion just shifted more towards the cannabis industry and the community that we have here. Even though not everyone's going to get along, but I feel like this community that we have here so far is one of the closest. Personally, for me, a lot of people that I have met, including you, including a lot of other people, online, in person at sessions, there's just so much more passion, so much more love, that I have never ever gotten anywhere else. And just from that sheer support, I feel I am where I belong. And, what I'm doing, with my content creation, it's what I love, and I see, other people are really loving it. I want to say back in December and stuff, I had, some rocky stuff happen in my life and whatnot, and, that I kind of touched on a little bit, like on my page. But, when I reached out to the people that I did, and, they, gave me those pep talks, I talked to you as well, we had our little talk and stuff, and I knew right then and there, I knew exactly where I was supposed to be. Yeah. And that's where I'm at, and that's where I want to go now.
Nice. So, you recently started working for a company. We don't have to talk about it, but do you want to talk about the position that you hold right now, or?
I mean, yeah, I'm just pre-packing right now. Started from the bottom, now we're here. But everywhere, and you start everywhere. You got to start somewhere, and where it's at, I'm having fun. It's cool. I'm getting to know. Even just pre-packing, I'm getting more familiarized with product and what New Mexico, growers and, different brands have to offer. And, you can kind of know, and you see where the quality is, what people are bringing to the table, what kind of new innovations are coming through. And, even though it's just, I wouldn't even say it's small because it's still an important job, but, it's dope. I love it. It's really cool. It's awesome. That's all I can really say. It's just really, really cool, and it's very, very fascinating. And you kind of see where everyone else's, kind of life stories come into play. And it's dope.
Well, the best leaders come from people who have done it hands-on.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
That's the only really way to know and get it. I already did my time doing all that years ago, so thank God. But welcome to the industry full time, man. It's great to have you here and everything. So you keep, we keep coming back to the content thing. So let's talk about that a little bit. What kind of content, have you been creating lately? We talked about a little bit of advocacy, but there's been some other good stuff too.
I mean, my kind of aspect and what I've learned over content creation is that there's no really which way that you have to kind of stick with. Yeah. I think once you start to kind of limit yourself, you kind of start to put yourself in your own kind of forced writer's block. Yeah. And you don't really get to explore and expand your potential on what you can learn. Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing that I will say is I feel I put out really good content, not just, what I'm doing, but just the quality, the lighting, the angles, everything, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and it's kind of gross, but
it looks great.
Thank you.
Your content comes out amazing. I'm jealous of it. I'm like, oh man, it looks so good. And this looks great too. I'm just talking Instagram.
but what the funny thing is like I didn't go to school for it. Yeah. I self-taught myself. And I'm smart, but I'm not like Albert Einstein whatsoever. The biggest thing is that I'm just trying, I'm learning, and I keep doing it, and it doesn't matter what I film, I just film. Yeah. And either if that clip is 20 seconds long or like a minute and a half, I'm having fun with it, and I'm able to use it any which way, and I'm learning every day. Yeah. I think that's what everyone else can do too. It's short form, long term, just create. That's the best thing that I could say. Exactly.
And with me, I do get creative, but I am so busy. I wish I could sit there and make all these lavish videos and everything. I'm so lucky to have people like Gino, where I can just walk in the studio, host the podcast, and then leave and go do all the other stuff I got to do. So, I'm appreciative of that. You're welcome! There's Gino in the other room. He's in his little closet. Just kidding. He's right here. But I want to get the information out to people, and people like you pretty it up, make it look better. And I'm just the guy, I'm used to being the intel collector guy. I'm just getting the information out, and then it's figured out some other way and dispersed throughout there. So I really want to make it pretty, but dang, I just don't have enough time. And you know what? You've somehow figured out the time and you know the know-how and everything to do it. So you know I commend you for that. That's
Appreciate
dope,
you,
man.
brother.
You know, because there's been a couple times where like you've taken what information I've given, and I'm like, oh, he made this way cooler. Share all day.
That's also ADHD too, man.
Yeah.
Like,
I got it too. I get you.
Just like I'll just be randomly doing stuff, and then I'm like in like a conversation, I'm like, yeah, okay, oh yeah, and how do you feel about that? And I'm just like editing, and it happens, and it's like Ricky Bobby, Talladega Nights. I don't know what to do with my hands. Yeah, the car felt soft, really smooth. It was good. That's pretty much how it is just with editing. But like you know, a lot of times when I'm editing, I'm like can't sleep, days off, lunch breaks. If a lot of times like if you're passionate, like and like I said, it's when you're doing something you love, you don't feel like you're working.
No.
And it's cliche, but like if I love editing, so like I'll get stuff done, but there are times where I have to sit down and like, hey, you've got to edit. Let's do this. So it's like, okay, let's take this rip and then let's get to editing. And I'm just kind of brain dead, just editing, but we get it done. Yeah. We definitely get it done.
It's the same with the script, if you guys, or my guide, if you guys don't know, I do it day of the show, just in case anything changes or something happens right before the show. And it's happened a bunch of times. So I'm glad that I do this style, but I have to sit down and I have to do the whole thing. It goes up to 7 pages sometimes. And not all that content's used and whatever, but there's a lot in there. So it's the same thing, like you have to sit down but it doesn't feel like work at the end of it. No. Like it's just like, oh, this is something I love. And some of it's just off the top of the head. I'm like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, let me make sure on this. Oh, yep, that's right. And
that's how I'm with editing too. I'll edit everything and I'm like, okay, cool. Here's the base. Okay, now let's detail. And that's how it works. So it's, right on par. And this guide, amazing. I was nervous as hell. This guide is helping a lot. like for real, like that, like this. I'm like, I'm good.
This is made by a person with ADHD, so that's the reason why.
Hell yeah.
Fantastico. So, but yeah. Anyway, thank you for that and sharing. That was a fun conversation. But let's talk a little more about advocacy. And you've been a little new to it. Mm-hmm. So, what are some tips that you can give somebody other than showing up, who's trying to get into advocacy? Maybe they do content creation. Maybe they do something else. What's some advice you can give them just diving into it?
So first off, the one, just showing up to education. That is going to be the biggest thing. I mean, I think we've all kind of been down that road where either in work or in life where it's kind of like the blind leading the blind.
Yeah.
And like as an advocate, I'm not gonna say I know everything, because I don't know everything. I'm pretty sure I can speak for you too. I mean, you've been in the industry way longer than me, and there are stuff that you're still learning about.
I'm not gonna learn everything until the day I die.
Exactly. Yeah. You hit it right on the head. So it's knowing like kind of your education, but knowing why you're doing it, and for who you want to do it for too. Like, and other than just, cannabis as well, I am very, big in the disabled community as well. One of my past jobs too, I was a job coach, and doing all that for people with disabilities in the looking for jobs and stuff. My girlfriend is also, in the disabled community as well. So it's just, knowing the education and, advocating for, what needs they need, whether it be in the cannabis industry or just in general, just to have a better way of life, and it's just knowing, okay, here are these problems, let's read about it. Yeah. And, you read about it, and, you can have discussions, through content creation. This is, you can be like, hey, this is what's going on. This is how I feel. What do you feel about it? So, it's knowing your education, and using that correctly and not in, ways that are going to harm other people, or, belittle other people, but, still doing it in a creative way. That's going to be the biggest thing, is just the education for sure.
Education takes time. I've been doing this for 11 years. I'm still learning things. There's things that we learned that were incorrect that we found out through science. So like, the sativa indica thing. Well, these days things are so mixed, it's not really sativa or indica. It's just all hybrid, It's very rare to run into a true or pure land race that is a true indica, true sativa. So, there's things like that. So now it's like, oh, dang it, now we got to change that. And then we found out last year, season 1, episode 1, I told everybody we're using the wrong term for cannabis plants. We're calling it strain, it's actually cultivar. When we're talking about, the names and the different types. I don't want to go too into that and confuse anybody, but yeah, the real term is cultivar. It is acceptable because, it's been used for so long.
Yeah.
And so a lot of old heads will probably argue like, oh, I'm never going to use anything else. It's like, well, that's fine. But,
Yeah.
the correct term is this. I'm going to use it, so sorry.
Yeah. It's kind of like stigmas and stigmas. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. Stigma within a stigma. Kind of how we moved away from marijuana and we're using cannabis now.
Exactly.
I love the fact that we're using cannabis because
Yes.
that's its name. It's call it for what it is, and now we're starting to see the same thing with magic mushrooms. It's being called psilocybin.
Instead of shrooms.
Yeah, shrooms. Yeah. Some people still like, oh, shroomies, but for the most part, I'm hearing psilocybin, the conversation of. So, and that's a conversation for another day. Because today I was actually on a radio show to help with the group I'm associated with psilocybin push.
I saw that.
Yeah. So,
How'd that go?
it went great, man.
That's
It was
perfect.
cool. There were a bunch of older people, and I think that's what their audience is. And I'm like, no, this is great because we found out through the medical cannabis and even just regular recreational cannabis, a lot of the users, majority of them, are old people. And I shouldn't say old people, elderly people. 60 plus. Not 60 plus. And so a lot of those people are benefiting right now, and so those people will continue to benefit with the psilocybin. So and other demographics too, of course. Not just them, but they're one of the major ones that we found out that was surprising. That we thought it was going to be the younger crowd, but it ended up being the older crowd that ended up being the heavy user of cannabis.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and the thing is too is that just goes to show also, medicinally, medically, how much cannabis helps.
Yeah.
And just research and stuff, and just learning still about it even today. And even working in the industry such a short period of time so far. Just seeing that demographic that comes into the store, like it is mostly an older crowd, and it's very, very intriguing, and just to hear their stories too with the plant, it's dope, it's cool.
Yeah, it is, and maybe with your dope gear you can get their stories before they pass, about this and everything, because I think that's kind of important. They are our elders, and they do have stories, and they have been around a very long time. Some of them have been around since the drug war started, and they can share a lot, and we can learn a lot from that. So there's that part of advocacy is the historical part. And we have to make sure we get that right. Sometimes I even mess up and have to check, and Valerie will kick me in the ass and tell me that I got something wrong. I'm like, oh, my bad, Valerie. I should have known better. So because she's been around a long time too, and that's another person that I really want to make sure her story's told, because there's a lot of history that woman has, and I feel like people like you are capable and able to capture those moments and those people and everything. So that's something I'd like to see a little bit more, is our elders that kind of that pave the way for this kind of get remembered and their stories get told.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Valerie has actually been on my radar as far as wanting to tell her story, especially my first time going to the industry to the town hall and sesh meetings. Like just hearing her speak was intriguing and moving, and like with my content creation, what I want to do right now, like what I did for Royal Roads, kind of telling their story and stuff in that video, that's what I want to do for like a lot of other people, prominent figures in our area too. And Valerie is definitely one that's going to be I definitely want to talk to her for sure on that.
In the words of Val, far out. So, and speaking back to this, and this is for the people getting started again. What made you want to get involved? What made you want to get involved more with the advocacy side? What were you seeing something lacking? What was it?
I would definitely say, like, for sure, Valerie's story. That's one. Some like especially for cannabis and ending the stigma of how like it's not a gateway drug. Like I keep on touching on it, the medical benefits of it, on how it just betters, it betters everyone's way of life essentially. There are so many worse, drugs out there, so many, different, ways of like influencing into worse, situations, whether it be, hard drugs or, even, other sorts, forms of addictions and stuff like that, ending the stigma with cannabis, is number one. So hearing those stories of, just, wrongful, convictions, or, harsh convictions over, cannabis and stuff, it's just ridiculous. And, it sucks now that even today, especially in Texas, Texas is the highest state with with cannabis arrests. And one thing that I will say too, with Sunland Park, Sunland Park is making a lot of money.
They are just rolling.
I
For
mean,
17,000 people,
yes.
they are making a lot of money. That city is improving at a
Yes.
fast rate, hence the name Little Dubai.
And yeah, and you just hit it on the head. 17,000, right, is the population.
Yeah. I mean, it's growing, but yeah.
And but I will say, for how much money they are making, there is no way that all 17,000 people are putting that money into Sunland Park.
Yeah. Oh, and even statewide, I think
Yes.
over half of our sales come from out of state, aka Texas.
Yes.
And I think northern New Mexico doesn't realize that. There's a lot of things northern New Mexico doesn't realize. That southern New Mexico and eastern southern New Mexico realize that the state doesn't. Is that we make a lot of money in the state. Not with just like the oil fields and military presence that we have. There's only one military installation up north, and then there's like 2 scientific installations up there. South, we have White Sands Missile Range, we have Holloman Air Force Base, we have Cannon Air Force Base. We also have Health Staff, which is a testing facility. Then you have RATSCAT, which is on Holloman Air Force Base. Then you have the high-speed test track that's on Holloman Air Force Base as well. So you have all this stuff down there. And Holloman Air Force Base alone, now this is a statistic from back when I was in high school in 2006. Back then, they made $1 million a day. And that's from the contracting and everything that the military sells its weaponry. And so now they're probably making even more money a day. So, you got to keep that in mind. So that's just one Air Force base in the area.
Yes.
You have White Sands Missile Range. They have their own customers. That's Army. That's not even Air Force. That's a different branch. So I don't know how much they pull in a year, but there's a lot of customers that come from there. So that's one thing that the North hasn't figured out yet, is that they need the South just as much as we need the North.
Exactly.
Like we need each other. But the difference down here in Las Cruces, about 60-mile radius, there's about 3 million people, which is significantly more than what's in the state. We only have about 2.1 million. So that's another thing that the North hasn't really realized, is that there's more people down here, but most of them don't live in the state.
Exactly.
And they come from a state with more money, and they come from a state with more populace. And so they're coming to a smaller state with less money, and they're just feeding us money, dude. And it's great. And it's great to see, Sunland Park doing great, because I don't know if you know, or a lot of people know, just a few years ago, Sunland Park was the most corrupt city in the state, if not the nation. The federal government had to take over for a little bit. That's how bad it got. So, they're really turning it around. Things are looking better. And it's mostly due solely to cannabis, and that's a really good story. You know what I mean? And there's a reason why the nation is talking about Sunland Park.
Exactly. And I think that's also a more testamental to, especially Texas. I mean, to Texas, because like it shows that even Texans coming over to Sunland Park to buy cannabis is showing that Texans do want cannabis. And right now, Texas is kind of like this Wild West sort of thing. I'm just gonna touch on a little bit with the whole THCA thing, and that's the whole big thing just nationwide right now.
No, that's a great conversation.
But right now it's just that wild kind of goose hunt right now with like the THCA thing in Texas, with Sunland Park, some of that money coming from another state. So it's all these things just leading up and showing like, hey, are you going to touch on this? Yeah. Are you going to look at it? Are we going to end the stigma? Are we done turning a blind eye?
Yeah.
Like, face it.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah.
Legalize it.
Yeah. It's like, what's going on? Because there's a big push for decrim in a bunch of cities in Texas. Of course, the state, they're not budging on that. But
no,
individual cities and residents from those areas are really pushing for decrim. And some of them are winning. And of course, the state AGs don't like that. The local AGs don't like that. And so there's a big push for suing. And Texas is just in its own world. When it comes to it. They just refuse to, progress, to what everyone, I wouldn't say what everyone else is doing, but like what we found out wasn't the case on certain things. Like, okay, cannabis isn't the devil, so can we please stop, treating it that way?
Exactly.
We do need to progress on certain things, and they just do not want to budge, even if it's for their own good, like even if it's for their better. Like, if they said you're going to get $1 gajillion with this industry, they're going to say no just because of the stigma that's stuck behind it. But thank you for that conversation, man. That was really good, and it really might help some people out, like, and kind of clarify some things in their head. But here's one of the last conversations I actually want to talk to you about, the Hedy community and everything. Let's talk about the Hedy community, hash rosin.
Okay.
Which extracts are your favorite?
Oh, that's hard. You're asking. Oh God. Okay. So, that's really, really hard. I mean, if there's, I'm a terp chaser. Okay. Just like I want to say, I want to say every other person that labels himself a concierge. For me, I really can't, stick on a certain brand or anything like that. The biggest thing that I can say is I will buy what I love. And I think that's what everyone needs to go based off of. And this comes sort of like just in kind of like the boot industry too, what I've learned, I strive to kind of be a perfectionist, even though it's very, very, it's not good, but, when it comes to visually or how I like things, nothing's ever going to be perfect.
Yeah.
Everything's an experience. And if there are certain brands that you like for flower, there's a certain person, a certain brand, a certain cultivator that I love for flower. There are certain cultivators that I love for hash, but I go to them because of consistency. But I know some terps are going to be like this, and some terps are just going to be boof. But the thing is like every time we buy flower or hash or whatever, which way we consume, we are paying for an experience.
Yes.
Plain and simple.
And customer experience is important.
Exactly. Now, is there a boof out there? Yes, there is boof out there.
Yeah.
Yes, is there autoflower out there? Yes, there is autoflower out there. There is just stuff that should not be in being sold. Like I'm not gonna lie. But we pay for an experience, and you pay for quality. That's the best thing that I can say. You get what you pay for. So it just is what it is. Like, and even me, I have private reserve. I have, stuff that is just like my workhorse stuff that is good, but, I use a lot of it, so I'm not going to pay that much for it, but you know what you kind of get into.
Yeah.
In a sense. Like, I just, I love what I love. I love my terp profiles. My terp profiles change. I just love what I love. I really can't say that I have like a certain brand or anything like that. I love experience. I love flower. I love the plant.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's important, and people are like, oh, we're going to grow this much cannabis, or we're going to sell it for this much, and I'm like, okay, but you're not really selling an experience, I remember from Washington getting from Fat Panda a very terpy, yummy, a great experience from some jars, and I talk about it all the time. Why? Because it was an amazing customer experience. From the time I opened the jar to the time I put it in the pipe and smoked it, or even rolled a couple of joints and tried it that way. I took a couple of dry hits, loved it the whole way. And I know it's good cannabis because I can't hide it. I will hit it and I'll be in mid-conversation. I'll say, this is good. Not even thinking about it. Because,
that's the ADHD.
Yeah, it's the ADHD. I wouldn't even think about it. And I'll be like, this shit's good. And honesty will just come out. I'm like, this is good shit. And so, that's when it's good. When it catches me off guard and I'm like, that's good. That tastes good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But exactly. That ADHD, it makes me tell the truth.
and the thing is too is that I will also say too, traditional market is still out there. Traditional market is also part of our culture. I think we all still kind of touch on, that it is what it is. But nowadays too, like you will get boof in this flashy mylar, this flashy box and all that. But I will say I've had some really good terps that just came in a baggie that looks sketch, but it's good and it's quality. So it's that experience, just how we talked about. Like people got to know exactly what they're getting. Knowing when they're getting custodied and when they're when they actually do have some fire terps on their hands.
Yeah.
And also not to where someone is, I guess in the community spectrum, I guess you say, whether you're Hedy or not, not necessarily knowing your place, but seeing who you're interacting with. You know, I feel like everyone just has to kind of mingle with each other. You know, if you're heady, you're heady. You know, if you're not heady, you're not heady. You know, quit jumping all over each other and whatnot. And let's just enjoy what we want to enjoy. You know.
And you essentially just want, a good product, something that just tastes good, looks good, smokes good. If something tastes good and looks good and it smokes like shit, it's not going to be enjoyable.
No, it's not.
Recently I had a gentleman in Santa Fe. He smoked some of the Alamo cheese with me, and he told me, he's like, oh, I don't really like cannabis, it hurts my throat, this and that, it's usually a bad experience. Well, it was a total different experience when you smoke some of the stuff that I had. And he was like, this tastes great. He says it's smooth. He said, it doesn't burn. He said, don't get me wrong, smoking anything kind of burns. He said, but the stuff that my wife would have, it burns.
Yeah.
like burns. And I'm like, ugh.
The thing that makes you go.
Yeah, he was like, oh. He was like, I'm not even really coughing. It's more of like a THC cough is what I call it. Essentially that's what he explained to me. And I'm like, yeah, like a THC cough. He's like, yeah, it's not like a cough like I'm hacking up my lung. He goes, this is great. And so he thanked me afterwards. And so that's like the difference between, really great cannabis and subpar cannabis, or just, smoking to get high, the experience. And so maybe some people like the experience of just getting high. You know what I mean?
And your Alamo cheese is amazing. I love Chad's Alamo cheese.
He does talk about it a lot. Yeah. I appreciate that. We got a whole 10 of it growing right now. So some more coming up that we'll get to try. But before we move on to the next topic, which is actually really important, what are some future plans that you have for yourself?
I definitely want to do some traveling this year. Don't quote me on this, but a dear friend of mine, Karina, who you've had on this show too. Yeah. She mentioned the Emerald Cup and how I definitely have to go to the Emerald Cup, and that was a big just eye opener. And for some of you who don't know what the Emerald Cup is, it's the California Emerald Cup in the Emerald Triangle, and that is one of the most pristine areas for just growing cannabis alone. And and everyone says it, if there's a California Cup that you want to go to, it's the Emerald Cup, and that's definitely one I want to do. I definitely here within the next few weeks or month, a couple months, I want to go to up north. I want to go visit the homies and all the friends in ABQ, Santa Fe, all that. I get my hands on what I can here from the dispos and stuff, and I've talked to a lot of those people, and I definitely want to go visit up there. I want to go to Arizona as well. I want to go visit some glass blowers up there. I definitely have some stuff in mind. It's just getting my ducks in a row right now with getting myself set in the cannabis industry, what I'm doing now, and then I can start bringing that fire ass content that I want to do for sure.
Nice, dude. I can't wait to see what you have in store for us and everything. So where can people find you online? Instagram, website maybe, YouTube? So
right now it's just Instagram. I've touched on it a lot. I have ADHD. I have done long format videography as well, like YouTube and stuff. But for me, and just for what I do, making the minute and a half, kind of limited, content is what I definitely like to do. My mind is just a whirling wind of just chaos. So if I can fit that into a minute and a half, I'm down. So right now, it's just Instagram. You can find me at #of_theholy. And I know it's dumb. That's the only way IG would let me do it. But yeah, that's where people can find me right now, is on Instagram.
Cool. And keep in mind, I do share some of his content. Sometimes he'll have really great remixes of the information I gave out, or some really good information on his own. So I will share it, especially when you tag me. I'll share it when you tag me. So look out for him on my page. If you guys follow it, of course, don't forget to follow mine, like, share, follow, all that good stuff. So that way you don't miss any episodes or anything like that. So I really appreciate it, man. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to continuing this conversation because we got a couple of good topics to talk about before we end the show today.
Hell yeah, let's get into it, Chad.
Heck yeah, man. So next conversation we're going to have is going to be talking about cannabis and children, or the fact that some children are still getting access to cannabis, because since the last 4 years, Poison Control has been getting about 300 calls total, in the last 4 years about kids getting cannabis, mostly edibles. But you know, that's an issue, and that's actually alarming. That's not necessarily saying they're getting it from a dispensary. That's not saying they're getting it from wherever. That's just the fact that kids are getting it, and poison control is having to get called. You know, there's no statistics saying that, oh, well, you see this where it came from. It's like, no, it's just the kid got it. They don't really care where it got it from. They may ask him that, but that's not what's in the statistic. You know, like it's just that's what they usually report. I've touched on this in the past a few times before. I've even spoken over at city council before about this issue. You know, because this is more or less a parental issue versus a dispensary state law rule issue.
Exactly.
Because after the product leaves the retail establishment, there's nothing they can do other than doing their best to make sure it's childproof, opaque, and to the state law. Once you take it out the store, it's on you to ensure that child doesn't have reach to it. You know, they can only do so much to make it unaccessible within whatever, but you have to make sure it's out of their reach. You know, and that's one thing that I've touched on before, and I've said it many, many times, that you just got to make sure that either your medicine or recreational cannabis just gets, you know, put away. It gets stored somewhere that can get locked. It can be hidden. You know, just things with a lock, you know, go a long way. Even combination. I know the stoners, we don't really like to remember combinations, but, you know.
If we can.
Yeah, if we can remember it. But, you know, having some kind of safe or green safe, whatever, is a good idea, especially if I have kids around. If, you know, I have nephews, you know, they don't, you know, get to come over to my house very often, but, you know, when they do, I want to make sure that there's no cannabis around that they're going to get a reach to. And don't get me wrong, it's not on their radar. You know, they're not looking for it, but, you know, it's something that I want to make sure and take the responsibility that, you know, I take that extra step and it's not in the way where they can see it, you know?
Yeah.
So what is your experience with this yourself, you know, with kids? Is there maybe something in the family you've, you know, experienced before, or maybe just personally you've heard?
I mean, me personally, I haven't had any experiences with that myself. I have heard it, you know, my friends, you know, I think we're all at that age now. Holy crap, we're all at that age now where like even our friends, you know, are having kids and stuff, and we're hearing these stories and, you know, and whatnot. And, you know, we're going to touch on it a little bit more too, I'm pretty sure, from what I read in the notes, but like, it's definitely an issue right now, and it's being brought up because I think, and it's just me, I think it's because of the stigma still.
Yeah.
I think like with pharmaceuticals out there that don't have, child safe, containers or anything like that, that can just be bought and over counter at CVS, Walmart, Walgreens, and stuff like that, are equally, if not more dangerous than cannabis. And just how you said, it is more of like a parental aspect of it. And it comes down to how I said for, advocacy, but, just as a parent, to like children, it's just, is education, knowing when a good time is to talk about cannabis, knowing where your stuff is at all times. For me, I don't, like I said, I don't have any children. I'm in the same boat as you. I'm an uncle. I have nephews and stuff.
Uncle of 4.
3. and I have an office. That's also my studio and stuff like that. But if I'm by myself, my medication, will go around the house. But I am responsible enough to know, hey, anyone can come in at any time. So it's going to go back into my office where I know where it's at and I know it's secured properly. Yeah. And that's what it basically comes down to, is that type of stuff. It's not cool that a lot of representatives, law enforcement are going based off of that, when it's just an equal opportunity of, kids getting into it as much as alcohol, as much as other drugs, even pharmaceuticals, even like some foods, the parent, a parent might know that a child has a certain food allergy, but the kid doesn't because they're too young, and that kid's just going to say, hey, food, legal or illegal, it's food. They're going to eat it, and what's going to happen? Yeah, they're going to poison themselves.
And we all remember the DARE program and stuff. It's like, oh, be careful. Some of these, prescription drugs look like candy. This and that. They look very similar. Remember those? Yeah. And they try to curb that with cannabis. And okay, I get it. It shouldn't be like a gummy so enticing. Give me a square, or some people did dicks and boobs. But it's not supposed to be a kid-friendly shape. No, it's not. Those aren't kid-friendly shapes. So Yeah, that's how they got around it.
That's how they were created. Is that where you were going with? I said it. Just kidding.
You and him have a good old time right here. But it really is. It goes down to the parenting and everything like that. Just making sure that the kids can't reach to it. So I even got to cannabis in my teen years. It wasn't in my youth, but we had access to it via a dealer. That's another concern. Dealers don't ID. And I hate to bash the traditional market, but it is what it is. There are people in the traditional market who are selling to kids. And it's always been that way. It's not going to change. There's just people who have no morals. So when it comes to something like that, but it's really the dealers in the teen years are the ones who the kids are getting access from, or a family member. A family member is usually the one that gets it for them, or they take it from them, or it's found mistakenly, whatever. It comes from a family member, and it's not really coming. It doesn't come from the retail spots because you guys have gone in there. They ID you about 3 times.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. You get ID'd a lot when you buy cannabis.
You get ID'd at the door, and then they need your ID too to log your purchase most of the time too.
Yeah, see? Yeah, he knows exactly that, the whole process working there. See, you got it down. So here, I'll give you guys some tips here, on what'll help, and this is some of the stuff that other parents have told me before. This is something that even my own parents did when I was younger, or, this is some stuff that my friends have tried with their own kids, and the first one it starts with having a conversation with your kids. It starts with talking with your kids. What is cannabis? What it is to you? Like a lot of parents kind of talk to the kids about alcohol, which I kind of feel none of them talk to them about it much at all or enough. And I kind of feel that needs to change too, because it's almost taboo that we talk to our kids about the dangers of alcohol, this and that. My parents tried to warn us as much as they could when we were younger. But when it comes down to it, sometimes you have to learn the hard way.
Exactly.
We can teach people all they want, but certain ones they just want to learn the hard way. But the most you can do is at least try. Educate them. Sit them down. Tell them what it is. The history of it. Don't try to demonize it and dare program them. Like they did to us in the 90s. Because then they're going to retaliate against you because they were lied to. Don't lie to them. Kids are smart. And I think adults, we forget that a lot of the times. Like these kids, and we forget when we were kids, we really weren't that dumb. Like we figured out a lot of things early. Like we were dumb, but we figured certain things out that certain adults were like, oh, how'd you figure that out? And you're like, well, I'm just a tiny human.
Yeah.
Like I have a brain.
Internet.
Yeah, internet at the time. So, but yeah, what are maybe some tips that you can think of that you can give?
You hit it right on the head. Like it's just from that having those conversations. I can give like a definite example for how I was kind of raised with my parents. It wasn't necessarily with cannabis, but it was with alcohol. And I am in no way comparing cannabis to alcohol, because it's not. But I would say the way that my parents educated me with alcohol was pretty on par with, if I ever have kids, if I ever do, I would want to educate them. And that was with with just being involved with it at a what's the word I'm looking for? A certain age, I guess you could say. A lot of people, might not know this, but in the state of Texas, a child, well, okay, I won't say child, but like an underaged, person, I would say, I started doing this when I was about 14, 15. But in the state of Texas, a child can go into a bar essentially with a parent or legal guardian. And if that guardian purchases an alcoholic beverage and gives it to the child, that child is now legally able to drink that beverage. And my parents growing up, they were, they loved, that the nightlife and stuff like that. My parents, were big into country dancing. Once again, song called Cowboy. But that's how I kind of grew up. I started going to bars, with my parents. when I was about 14, 15, my mom would take me onto the dance floor, taught me how to dance country. My dad taught me how to shoot pool. And I loved doing that. So by the time when I was like 20, 21, it wasn't this taboo thing. Oh, I'm going to go out with my friends, stuff like that. Like I was at that time, I already knew what my limit was, how different alcohols react and stuff like that. And my parents weren't just like shoving down alcohol down my throat. It wasn't like that at all. It was getting used to that kind of aspect, and that kind of community, that nightlife, knowing what to expect. And, as I started growing up, driving and stuff like that, I haven't been arrested for, DWI or anything like that because I was educated about it.
Yeah.
And, it was just, as I was going to bars with my parents, all my friends were going out to these house parties, we're doing all these things. And I hear, oh, did you hear that they got raided? Oh, they almost arrested this person. Oh, this person, got messed up. Oh, this person's not coming to school today because, he's not feeling good. Alcohol poisoning, all this stuff. And it's because, you're shadowing, kids from this, and, kids are going to be kids, they're going to find stuff on the internet. They're going to get a hold of stuff. I was a teenager, I remember going off school, going to my dealer and picking up, stuff, that's just how it, just how it was. But it's just knowing that you have to educate and you have to, have those conversations with your kids, especially if you're the one doing it as well. Like
it's almost your responsibility,
exactly.
Because you're deciding to do this and bring that substance around the child that, it's up to you to explain to them what's going on, what it is, and that it's not for them.
Exactly.
Just how, there's a certain time where they have to take, maybe their baby medicine or something at some point. You explain to them, this is my medicine. There's a certain time where I take it,
Exactly.
Maybe that's a good way to start out, or, start with, they have children's books actually now where you can talk to your kids about it. So, look on Amazon, there might be, a good book to read the kid and kind of get them used to it and get them used to it. I think I remember years ago, there was a really good book. I went through an article that kind of went through what the book talked about, and they talked to the author, and that was actually really cool. It's really breaking the stigma, especially when it comes to the parents, because that's a huge thing, because I just don't think parents talk to their children enough about drugs and alcohol. And even my parents didn't, and I'll get to a story of what happened when I got caught. But, even my parents to a certain point didn't, nail it on the head because it was just still taboo. Even in the early 2000s, it was still taboo, because there's a lot of legal ramifications that come from it. And they just didn't want us to go down that route. And I think they're just trying to guard us from whatever way. If we don't know about it, we can't do it, right?
Yes.
But that doesn't always work because kids at school do it and they tell you about it, and so that's what happens. And, I think my mom learned that when she became a teacher herself. She was like, oh, yeah. She really saw. My dad saw it, but, not really her. So another good, some more good advice would be, if you go into the New Mexico Department of Health website, they actually have a lot of good pamphlets now and flyers and stuff that like really good information. You can print it out, put it on the fridge. Some informational stuff. I think there's some stuff for kids too and parents. So if you want to print that out and put it on the fridge, so that way they understand and they get a constant reminder, or maybe if you even have a sign on the fridge, whatever it is, or maybe you have a little lock box to keep your edibles inside of the fridge, like whatever you have to do it, but stuff like that for educational reasons, or if you don't know, that helps a lot because they're using factual stuff. And, I've shared the Department of Health's flyers before, and, they're actually very helpful. And some people from other states have been like, dude, I'm saving this. This is great. Or like, it's like a little clever and funny, but also informal. And I'm like, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I didn't make it, but, I'm glad they're making this.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm glad that the Department of Health kind of stepped in and did that because, it's not, recommended to use cannabis until like you're in your like mid-20s anyway.
Exactly.
So like kids really shouldn't be using cannabis to start out with. I used it, briefly when I was like 14. I didn't start using it again for another 10 years, when I was 24 when I got out the Army. And so there's, my brain had time to mature, so I'm not too sure if that was good, whatever. But, it is recommended that even at 21, it's still a little too young to use cannabis because they recommend that your brain should be fully mature to use cannabis, or any substance really. Medicinal purposes are differently, of course. If your doctor, agrees that you would benefit from it, the risk outweighs the reward. That's totally different. And that's a conversation that you have with your doctor. That's nothing that I can do or anybody else. And I recommend you do that. But yeah, there's also that you want to remind your kids that, it's not recommended until you're adult anyway, just like any substance. And that's something that I think adults don't really tell kids sometimes. Like, well, it's just not recommended, you know, like for, you know, your age, you know, because they just don't know. I mean, I was a dumb kid once too. You know, another way is, you know, mark your edibles, mark your stuff, mom and dad only, or adult only, or do not eat, whatever. You know, it should be locked away, but if whatever, at least mark it, you know.
Putting it on high shelves, you know, even that, like.
Yes, you know, and that can fail sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
Just, you know, get creative with it, you know, just make sure that your kids understand what that is, because you don't want them getting into prescription pills, you don't want them getting into your medical cannabis, you don't want them getting into your alcohol, because, you know, from what my parents have told me from their experience of teachers, the real issue was alcohol, as you were saying before.
Yeah.
You know, they encountered kids bringing alcohol to school more than they did with cannabis or any other substance.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember that in middle school and high school too. I remember Sprite bottles, Sonic cups,
Monster cans, like, and the thing is too is that I remember when I was in high school too, like Monster, we've all seen these where it's those tall boys, but they have the twistable cap on them. Yeah. We weren't even allowed those anymore, like for Monster cans, because it was always like vodka Red Bull, you know, Monster and this.
99 bananas.
99 bananas.
Y'all are sneaky.
For real. Like,
because we tried it too, and I'm sure the teachers tried that when they were younger. Because you have to remember, you know, don't think for one second that your kid isn't going to try to do what you did. They're half of you. So
yeah.
You know? Yeah. And even my nephews, one of them is almost just like me, and he's my nephew. You know, so there's that, and like it's scary how, you know, how DNA works like that.
Exactly.
So don't think for one second that they're not going to do what you did, because they're half of you, and they might mess up even worse. But at least what you can do is warn them that, hey, I did the same thing, not a good idea because of this. And you know what? Sometimes that works when you let them know that, hey, I burnt my hand on the stove like that once too. You probably shouldn't do it. You know, like here's a scar.
And I'm gonna out myself and stuff like that, but. My parents were strict as hell on me, and I learned how to be shifty as much as possible. So, I'm just going to say that. So if I'm saying that as a 31-year-old sitting here, your kids are doing it too.
Yeah. So being strict doesn't always mean that they're behaving.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
it's education. It's letting them. It's telling them how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And then finally, my mom, you know, sat me down and told me, son, I was only worried about you using cannabis because, one, you're a brown man. You know, and especially where I'm from, the police do treat you differently. And then two, the legality of it. She said, I just didn't want you to get tied up in the legal stuff that comes with it. And you know what? Then I understood. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, well, you could have just told me that before.
Yeah.
So, because remember, as a parent, you are a teacher. You teach your child things all the time. You teach them how to eat. You teach them how to wipe their butt. You teach them how to wipe their face. You know, you're teaching them how to be a person and the person that you want them to be. So that continues even with the substances that you use, be it whatever. You are going to have to teach them. And to be honest, you can use the internet for ideas. There might be people on YouTube who are parents who give you these ideas like this. You know, I can only give you so much from my perspective, but there could be a parent out there who's done a lot, you know, and you know, almost can write a book on, you know, the stuff they do for cannabis because they care so much and they care so much to share. So look for those people. You know, I didn't even think to look for them before the show. I can't recommend anybody and a channel, my bad. But, you know, I'm sure there's some out there. Do you happen to know anybody, like off the top of your head or anything?
I do, but I honestly can't think right off the top of my head. Yeah. The biggest thing that I would say though too is that also like adding to that, there are a lot of different like stash things that you can find, like even like just on Instagram too, like different influencers and stuff like that. I think I want to start doing that too. is just finding like these different different ways of doing stash jars. That way you can even just like hide it from like your children that maybe aren't even like I said, old enough to even understand what the education they're being told. Yeah. So it's even like towards that too. But there are a lot of even, you know, parents that totally, you know what? I'm dumb. The dope moms of the Southwest.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah, Maribel and all them. Wow, dope moms of the Southwest.
Yeah, those ladies do a lot of good stuff. Shout out to y'all. You know,
I feel, honeys, I am so sorry. I totally forgot. Yeah, the dope moms of the Southwest. So dope moms of the Southwest. You know, they have a lot of education, you know, not just for, you know, mothers that, you know, either, you know, maybe going into parenthood or, you know, that are, you know, want to start cannabis now, even, you know, with children and stuff. They will have that information too.
I know, you guys already thinking it. Chad, you should have them on the show. I'm working on it. They're cool ladies, you know, they'll be on. I'm just, actually, I think I might have them booked at some point, but I am going to try to get them on at some point. I have to check my schedule. I'm booked until June. So there's a lot of episodes in between now and June. I might have one of them in there, I think, but if not, I'm gonna try to get them in anyway because
awesome.
You know, it'd be a great idea to, you know, bring in parents actually that can, you know, give this because, you know, I'm just giving, you know, advice that I was told from other people that was shared with me. Some of it came from online and just different places, but you know, maybe they have a solution that I don't think of because I'm not in that situation.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in the situation, boots on the ground, you have to come up with some weird ass solutions. Yes. You know, like that's where, you know, 100-mile-per-hour tape or duct tape came from. You know, the military and trying to figure out a solution in a very short amount of time.
Yes.
So sometimes the best things come from that. And, you know, they could have some really great ideas and everything. So if I haven't asked you yet, ladies, I'm sorry. I do want you on the show. So here soon, maybe we can get you on. So I'm gonna give you guys a quick example of what my dad did. So as you guys know, my dad was in the Air Force. He did about 11 years. He made it all the way to Staff Sergeant in the Air Force. And so by the time I was a teenager, he had been out for over a decade. And I got caught smoking weed. And he was one of the ones who caught me. Fair enough. And I got punished for it. I wasn't allowed to see my friends. I wasn't allowed to watch TV. And I wasn't allowed to use the phone. At the time, there was none of the cell phone thing that we got now. It was just, you know, cordless phones. We had cordless, you know, at least. So I wasn't allowed to use the house phone or anything to talk to my friends or anything like that or, you know, whatever. So all I could do was read books and do labor work. And so one of the tasks that he had me do was there's a speed limit sign. And the speed limit sign wasn't on the fence line, you know, where it separates the properties. It was more on our side. And my dad was like, I kind of don't like that. I want to move it. So in very military fashion, my dad takes me outside and tells me no such matter what I'm doing at all that day. And he has the shovels and everything. What the hell's going on? He said, you see that speed limit sign? I'm like, yeah. He said, I want you to move it about 8 feet. 8 feet doesn't seem a lot until you dig out a speed limit sign and realize that there's concrete down there. So I'm sitting here and, you know, I'm kind of mad at myself because like, damn, I put myself in this situation. Now I'm getting really punished. And, you know, I'm about 14, 15, you know, I'm a teenager, you know, I got the energy and the strength. So I'm sitting there pickaxing away, shoveling, and this cop comes by and I thought he was my savior. Oh no. So he comes by, he like stops and he looks at, you know, he rolls the window down. What are you guys doing? My dad goes over him and tells him, caught my son smoking pot. So I'm punishing him, making him move that stop sign about 8 feet. And he goes, oh, okay, well, just don't get hurt, and just drives off. I was like,
that cop could have been like city ordinance, you can't move it.
Nope.
But he was like, nope.
He said, be safe, and just drove off, gave no fucks.
I like how you said before, like he said when I was caught and I was grounded, the only things that I could do was read and do work. That just sounds like the most military thing ever. I feel like that's like what a lot of people do in the military as it is. It's either you're reading or you're working. There's nothing else.
Or working out. There's a lot of working out.
Yeah.
It's like being in prison. You know, you work out a lot.
Isn't that work though? I think that's work. See, I don't do ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, chin-ups. I don't do any. I do downs. I sit down, lay down, give me a cheeseburger, I'll woof it down. Like working out is work to me too. I'm just gonna say it.
I don't work out like I do to the military because that was just weird. That was a weird way to work out. Don't get me wrong. There's a few things that I still take today. It's like my push-up form, immaculate. I will say that. I got in a lot of trouble in the military, so my push-up form is immaculate. But yeah, so he made me do that. So I ended up moving it. And to this day, the speed limit sign is still there. And actually a drunk cop, you know, funny, about 5 years ago actually hit that speed limit sign while he was drunk in his squad car still from the night before.
Oh, God.
The city came and fixed it. And I was like, I didn't even know that thing shouldn't even be where it's at right now. They put it exactly where I had put it, you know, like almost 20 years before. So that sign is still there, and it's because I got caught smoking weed.
Did they make him put it back up?
Yeah, my dad made them put it back up. No, I mean, it's a city property, so they had to put it back up anyway. But yeah, they had that up pretty quick. You know, it's a speed limit sign, so. But yeah, there's something that my dad did. Do you have to do that? No. It's just an example of what my parents did. And to be honest, I didn't smoke weed or want to smoke weed, you know, until I was an adult again. And the fact that my mom had that conversation with me is like, look, mijo, you know, I just don't want you to get caught up in the legal system. You know what? That's fair. You know, and when she told me that, I was like, all right, cool, I get it. And then once I became an adult, I was like, well, let's legalize this shit.
Yeah, like my dad was he never ever caught me smoking. My mom, I did most of my smoking with, you know, I did like growing up.
Yeah.
My mom educated me on it too. Like I even showed you like my mom was dope. My mom loved doing plaster and stuff like that. She made lamps and stuff. I showed you the little porcelain bubbler my
Yeah,
mom
you
made.
did actually. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom made that bubbler and stuff, and and my mom was the same way. I only smoked what she had, which was not good stuff. But anyways, I did what I could, and it was kind of like that same thing. I don't want you caught up in the legal stuff, and whatnot, which is very, very true. I mean, as it is, Texas is still very, very.
I don't want to get caught up there with that.
Oh God, like it's scary. I'm not gonna lie.
Not even a pin down there.
Yeah, but I know what I'm getting myself into. I think we all do. But that's why I'm also advocating, because it shouldn't be illegal. Yeah. Like it's dumb. It's stupid.
Ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. So.
And then now I've noticed that with the psilocybin push, it doesn't have the same stigma as cannabis does. And to be honest, the radio host today, when I was on the interview, he told me something I didn't even think about. I know this information, but I didn't correlate them together. He said, yeah, look at the history of it. It has such a stigma, all the negative stuff that was said about it. It just wasn't the same with psilocybin. I was like, you're 100% correct. All this information I have, I didn't put those two together, but yeah, and the reason why I guess I said for some reason there's still a stigma is because I feel like there should be less of a stigma now than there was back then, but there's still some of the same stigma, and that's really bothersome. But luckily things are slowly changing. It's only been, 3 years since we passed, adult use, and, about 2 years since we have adult sales. And so, it's still pretty young. We haven't even hit the 5-year, honeymoon mark, of us, becoming more of a stable industry and everything. So, we still have a long way to go. We're only 2 years in the sales and everything. So, but that's all I have for, the tips and everything for the kids getting cannabis. It's an unfortunate thing, but parents, please just be a little bit more mindful about where your cannabis is, where you store it, and how much access your kids have it. And also, don't think for 1 second that your kid isn't your kid.
Yeah, and number one thing too that I will add as like living in a still illegal state and advocating for it, these type of things too is just ammo for a lot of these, a lot of lawmakers, a lot of people in office and stuff. And the thing is too is that if you're watching this in an illegal state, and you want your state to legalize, and the way things are supposed to be, these type of things don't help. Straight up. Like the more ammo, the more fire, or the more gas that we throw on the fire, the worse it's gonna be. So don't be a part of the problem. Be a part of the solution, please.
100%.
It's the best thing that I can say.
Yeah, because they can only make so many laws before it just becomes really stupid. Please don't let it get that way just because of the fact you don't think it's an issue, or it will be. So, but anyway. I thank you guys for that, and like I said, this is just some tips, from us and everything, from our experience, from what we've been told from other people's experiences like that. If you have some tips yourself, share them with me. That'd be great. I'd love to share it with other people. Like I said, I'd love to have the dope moms on it sometime, and maybe get the actual parental aspect, because they do push a lot for ensuring kids don't have access to cannabis and blah blah blah. So. But anyway, we're going to go on to the last topic, and we'll try to go through this really quick, because this is actually a really interesting and important topic. Because there's a lot of people in the state, and actually there's a lot of businesses going out of business here in the state, and there's a lot of retail shops starting to shut down in the state. We're starting to see that bubble really take hold. And the ones that are really starting to feel it, surprisingly, are the MSOs. The multi-state operators, or the really big cannabis companies that, came from out of state here in New Mexico. We have a few of them here ourselves. They're all over the nation. And to be honest, they have been... Well, the industry itself, the customer base, has been shifting away from that big corporate kind of cannabis thing because of the quality.
Yes.
Or the lack of.
Yes.
The lack thereof, which I'm happy for. I'm glad. Because that's what this was supposed to be. We open it up. Whoever has the best quality, best cannabis, best business wins. If you start to lose, it might be because quality or whatever else. And we'll talk about, some of the reasons why some of these places are failing. And how you can actually look for yourself. So here's like a little, like a little Bill Nye scientific thing you can do at home. So here's another thing. So Another reason why I'm saying that this is starting to happen to the big guys, because if you look at the cannabis stock market, which is only based in Canada, Aurora stocks, they dropped 11% to $3.47. So, and it looks like that might drop again, and that just happened yesterday at the time of recording, because this is going to come out on Thursday. Today's actually my birthday that we're recording this, so by the time it comes out,
Happy birthday! Happy birthday! Happy birthday!
Appreciate it. All right, party's over. Yeah, Aurora Cannabis, their shares plummeted, and it's kind of the same for most of the other stocks that are on the cannabis side for the big companies. We don't have that in America because cannabis is illegal federally, so we can't put cannabis on the stock market like that. There's like little workarounds, of course, but like the way they have it in Canada, we can't do that. And that's in another country. However, Canada is showing signs of shifting away from big corporate cannabis to craft cannabis too. And I've talked about this many times. I'm going to kick this horse till it's dust. So they have shut down a lot of greenhouses in Canada, the big ones, the 100,000 square foot, whatever. They're shutting them down because they couldn't make money, because they couldn't control the quality. The quality is in craft cannabis, and that's actually where they're starting to see their customer base go to. They shifted towards craft cannabis, kind of how people shifted from, Coors Bud Light to craft beer.
Yep.
And I hate to compare that, but that's literally what's happening.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, a couple of big shops, one is Ultra Health. They closed down in Santa Fe. It's sad to see, but they've been around since medical. They've been one of the big guys. They were technically an MSO because he came from Arizona from it initially. And the real name of the company, I think, is Top Organics, I think, because Ultra Health was the management company back in the day. Mm-hmm. They've been known to call themselves Walmart or Weed. And so that tells you right there that, they want to have a product that sells fast and cheap,
mm-hmm.
And when it comes to cannabis, that's not necessarily always going to work.
No.
You have another MSO here in the state, Swazi. They own our Greenleaf, and they also own Everest. Mm-hmm. Same thing happened with them. And here comes the scientific part where you all at home can do this with me. So if you go to the New Mexico CCD website, they have a tracking link. And Gina, I'll get you that link so you can put it at the bottom. I'll get you guys that link so that way you all can check for yourself. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to your respective city, and you're going to go to your favorite dispensary, whatever it is. It doesn't even have to be. It could be their competitor. Look at their sales. If their sales have done this and continue to do this and keep going down, that means that they're not doing well for a few factors. And actually, Adrian, I'll let you tell me, what are a few factors that you kind of think that these places are facing that are, seeing decrease in sales, like heavy decrease?
The number one thing I will, and I'm going to say it again, education.
Yes.
There are a lot of people, and this is another thing where it sucks is especially with MSOs, there are people that are jumping into the industry that should not be in this industry. They walk into, a dispensary and they see these edibles, they see these pre-rolls, they see this flashy, glass jar, with this really nice font on it. And they say, oh, well, that's in that shop, I'm going to have it in mine.
Yeah.
And that's what they go based off of. And this is coming from a person who has probably never smoked weed in their life. And that's just plain and simple the way it is. It's kind of like monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah.
They're not really trying the product itself. They're really not getting into why certain things are the way they are. Like one company that I see a lot of, but it sells a lot of, and I'm just gonna say, is Wild. Because Wild is multi-state as well, but they have done the education in their product to get out exactly what is going to sell, but for the reason of why it's going to sell. It's got good quality. Wild, they have, just THC gummies. They have, the different, they have like the full spectrums. They have the 20 to 1, stuff like that. But, if someone doesn't know how to sell that and just has Wild just because it's Wild and not tell a customer about why they're selling it, then they're going to be stuck with their product.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Because there are a couple of MSOs in the state that are doing well. Mm-hmm. The great example is Top Crop Dark Matter. That's an MSO from Oregon. Doing fantastic. They make over $1 million a month in Sunland Park. They make over $300,000 to $200,000 a month here in Las Cruces, and they're just killing it. Mm-hmm. And it's because they have quality. They have customer service. They treat their employees well. Their turnaround isn't as crazy as these other places where they have a new employee every week, where they can't figure out the system or anything, and then they make them sign a non-compete, and then the competition water gets thinned out. So it's just a lot of things go into it. So there is a way that you can do it as an MSO. It's just the ones that we have here, the majority of the time, are taking the Walmart route when Walmart is used to
Yeah.
selling school supplies, food, medicine, and knockoff sneakers. Like that's not what the cannabis industry is. It's something that is made by a certain amount of people and then sold out that way. It's just the Walmart model doesn't necessarily work with us because the customer base after a while shifts and changes. So if you set your grow up just to cater to the penny pincher, that the person who's just trying to save a buck, you're going to lose after a while because those penny pinchers, they will spend money on good cannabis eventually once they find it out and discover it.
Yep.
They'll figure it out, because we've all know that person like, man, I used to smoke this trash weed because it was cheap and affordable, but I just can't do it anymore.
Exactly.
Like whatever the case may be, Another thing that I've seen is customer experience. A lot of these places, they don't have any customer experience whatsoever. You walk in, the walls are bare. You felt like you walked into a dispensary in Colorado because of the security. I don't know why people are doing it exactly like other states because you can think outside the box here in New Mexico. You feel like you don't feel like it's catered, like a catered experience. You just feel like it's copy paste, put it here. We did this from this place because it worked there. You did it from that place, and that place did that because that's how they have to do it.
Yes.
A lot of these places are only set up that way because that is what they had to do per law. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it here in New Mexico. Our laws are totally different here. We're one of the only states that have consumption lodges and drive-throughs, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
So that's something that we saved by the hair of our chinny chin chin this year. Customer experience comes with customer service. And some of these places that aren't doing well, their customer service, oh my God, sucks. It is like the worst. It's like dealing with government employees. And it's kind of sad to see because instead of seeing them as a customer or as a patient, they see them as a window shopper. You know what I mean? Or they tell them that, like, oh, you're a window shopper, get out of my shop. Like, I'm not going to go back to that place. And I'm definitely not going to recommend that to any other place because there's this magical thing nowadays called reviews. And some of these reviews.
Hi.
And people can make reviews. And if you have a negative review, it affects your business. Now, what some of these owners are doing that doesn't help is they're arguing with the people in the reviews and they're starting to attack people, which makes it look even worse. So,
even sending cease and desist letters when they feel when someone calls out their product that it's bad or their customer service is bad. And so instead of looking at the problem themselves, they're sending cease and desist and asking people to apologize for them having really crappy quality.
Yeah, and you're not going to get anywhere by gaslighting your customer base because the customer base doesn't have to go to you. The customer base doesn't have to buy from you. And the customer base sure shit can go somewhere else.
Exactly.
And they do a lot of the time. There's many other places to choose from here. And that's just, part of the learning curve, that we have here. In some places, they figured it out early. Some places are starting to figure it out. In some places, they will never figure it out, and they're the ones who deserve to be out of the industry, unfortunately. I don't want anybody to lose their livelihood, but that's the risk that we all took when we signed up to do this. You know what I mean? There's a risk of failing. There's a possibility of making it. It just depends how you do it. If you want to do it your way, do it your way. If you want to do it someone else's way, that's by all means. But there is a way that it's starting to work, and there's a certain way that it's not working. And it looks like the MSO style just is not working here in New Mexico. We can't really blame oversaturation for everything. I thank oversaturation for showing these issues and bringing them to light and to showing us where the quality is and where the quality is lacking. Because if you look at the sales don't lie. They're not selling because like, oh, there's just too much weed. It's like, no, there's just an overabundance of weed that you can choose. Now, don't get me wrong. We have the issue of out-of-state cannabis. I feel once we get that issue tackled and those people out of the industry, we're going to start seeing more of a stable market. Because we can't stabilize our market if we're being undercut by the traditional market still. That doesn't work. So once we get that fixed, I think our market's going to get a little more stable. And those people that are doing it wrong, selling out-of-state cannabis, terrible customer service, whatever, all of the above, they're going to get out of the industry. Thank God, because then we're going to be stuck at the end of the day with the people who are great. Because during the medical days, we had very few dispensaries, and they could essentially do what they wanted because where else are you going to go?
And at that point, like a lot of times, you can only get what they could offer in a sense, which was very limited. And at that point, you don't even know the quality of that stuff as it was. So at that point, either medical or traditional, your quality is up in the air.
100%.
It's a lose-lose situation at that same time.
And in New Mexico, you have the option to do prepackaged or deli style. I mean, not many states give you the option. You know, so like there's just so many options in New Mexico, you know, and we're just so early that it's going to happen. And people that, you know, don't do it right, they're losing out. And it's people, some of them have been here a very long time. That's unfortunate, but you know, they didn't see the trends and they didn't want to change, you know, and you know, just charge a little bit more for better quality.
Exactly.
You know?
And it's funny that you also mentioned, you know, pre-pack or deli style, because there's even a lot of, or even some, I won't say a lot, but some dispensaries that are even doing both.
Yep.
Where they do have, you know, the pre-packed, you know, for a certain price, you know, your workhorse, and then they do have the higher end, you know, boutique cannabis for deli style. So you can get a little bit of each to start seeing where your stuff is at. And that even opens up even more opportunity for someone who is, you know, that budget shopper that wants to get into, you know, higher end, or even like me, where, you know, I love higher end stuff, but you know, I am using, you know, cannabis for medicinal purposes as well. So I still need a workhorse at the same time. Yeah. You know, and that's okay. So that it's just stuff like that from a legal standpoint, and doing that's really going to help too.
Yeah. 100%. No, I agree. That's a good point there. You know, and another thing I wanted to talk about is some of you guys are creating disgruntled employees like a freaking factory. And that's one thing that isn't helping anybody. When you create a disgruntled employee, they're not buying to anything to not tell people how it went. You know, even if they sign an NDA, some of those aren't even legally binding. You know, like you have to kind of choose your battles there. You know, if you don't treat people correctly, they're going to tell their friends how it went. Those friends are consumers. Those friends work in the industry. Those friends do whatever, and they tell other people, and it goes on and on and on. It's not just the reviews. So when you treat employees like dog shit, and you treat them not like a person, you want to steal their tips. You want to threaten them for, you know, trying to bring up an issue, and you know, now you're under a lawsuit for breaking whistleblower laws, because those do exist. You can't just fire somebody because they brought up an issue. You know, that there is a way to do certain things in this state. It is an at-will state, but there still are laws that go around that. So, you know, when you do things like that, those employees talk. Just like customers talk, employees talk to each other. You don't think for one second that the competitor of this company that has bud tenders they're not friends and talking to each other. Like they talk to each other all the time. Like this isn't, I don't know what some of these people think's going on, but employees do talk to each other. And you guys aren't doing yourself any favors by treating people like crap, paying them like crap, or stealing their money.
Yeah, because it's going to get to a point where no one's going to want to sell you weed anymore.
Yeah, and you know, some people wonder why. It's probably because you treat your employees like total shit, and they knew too much, and you know, now they don't want to mess with anybody. So, but these are just, you know, some of the tips that I have, some of the, you know, opinions, and some of the stuff that I've seen from other state, you know, through research, you know, analyzing things. And you know, maybe you could save your business by, you know, having a little bit of something for everybody instead of just trying to look for the person that's finding the cheapest stuff, because the person buying cheap today might buy expensive tomorrow. It's never going to be the same. So keep that in mind. It's a never changing industry, and you got to keep up with the trends.
Yep.
So anyway, buddy, I really appreciate you joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Chad.
It's been a great time. I can't wait to have you on again. We can do an update, and it's been a great episode on this. And
definitely,
you know, you did a great job. Of fun. Yeah, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Oh, real quick before we go, Connecticut gets their very first drive-through, so we'll get some data from them to see how it goes. So
nice.
I got a buddy in Connecticut, and I was talking to him about it, so I'm gonna see how it goes. But anyway, I wanted to give that. Make sure you guys like, follow, subscribe, whatever you got to do to ensure you don't miss an update. I'll see you guys next week. All right, shoots.